Hello chess friends and welcome to your of Chess channel and welcome to a truly remarkable gameplay by the latest version of Stockfish, the powerful Stockfish 16. Today we see the fish battling it out against another top engine Black Marlin with the black pieces in the Benoni Defense. Today we see the strongest chess engine in the world playing the Benoni Defense. Recently we have covered really two great games played by Stockfish in which Stockfish really destroyed the Benoni Defense with a beautiful time mano variation of the Benoni, but also with a beautiful Kingside Move Order. So these two variations Stockfish used in order to really destroy the Benoni Defense. But let's see now how the fish is playing this, I would still say, risky opening. I'm not a big fan of the Benoni because white has always some great attacking chances. But maybe if you're stuck to the Benoni, if you still want to play, this is a perfect game for you. Put your seatbelts on and enjoy in really great gameplay by Stockfish. And the cool part is also that we'll see here a completely new method of the Benoni Defense. Also great theoretical novelties here by Stockfish. So in my opinion, very important game. So here with the white pieces, the Black Marlin chess engine opened with the move d4. We have now the move c5, the old Benoni, d5, and after knight to f6 and knight to f3, we have reached now the Benoni Defense, the so-called Kingside Move Order. So after move g6, white doesn't want to expose its own pawn structure here with the move c4. You can play it, but then I think you could get something like b5 immediately. This could be lead then into maybe the Benko gambit. So that's why knight to c3 keeps still everything well protected here around the square. b5 is of course supporting the potential progress of white here on e4. So I'm really big fan of this Kingside Move Order by white against the Benoni Defense. I'm playing it also myself, so in my opinion it's a very powerful variation against the Benoni. So after knight to c3 we have bishop to g7, now comes e4, d6, and now bishop to b5. This move of course slows down the development of blacks here on the queen side. Black continues here with knight to d7, and now after move a4, good move here by Black Marlin. White is not allowing some expansion here by black with a6 b5. That's now the most important strategic goal of blacks, of course, with the support of the dark square bishop with something like rook to b8. We want to somehow get an attack here on this side of the board. So a4, pretty standard move here, I think, for white. So after move a4, calcing also by white. We have now rook to b8. Good move here by the fish, preparing of course a6 b5. Black Marlin continues now with rook to e1, and now Stockfish continues with a6. We have bishop to f1, and now comes, I think, the first sort of critical moment, I would say, in the game. In chess history, knight to e8 has been played in many games, but also queen to c7 were the main lines. So I see now also many games in the database in this particular line. But what Stockfish after move a6 and bishop to f1 played was, I think, really an important improvement now for black. Stockfish simply continues with the move b6, and this move is not allowing again some expansions by white here like a5. If you play that, then of course we simply pass through with b5, and then we have a powerful attack here on this side of the board. For instance, if you play instead of this move b6, this move knight to e8, then I think white can always play this move. That's the important about this move b6. Black is gaining challenge with the move a5, and it's very tough now to do something here on this side of the board. So I see one game in the database, Kasparov against Radulov, where Kasparov really played great position chess. Look at this, knight to f4 never really allowed this b5 move by black. So that's why I think after move bishop to f1, very important now novelty by Stockfish. b6 is not allowing, as I said, a5. If that happens, we'll simply pass through, not take, of course. Then you have two weaknesses here, the a5 weakness, also the a6 weakness. You simply pass through and you have great attacking chances here. I think black would have really powerful game for sure. So that's why here after move b6, here Black Marlin continued with the move h3. It's not allowing also some ideas of knight to g4 and then fixing the position around the square e5. So one of the good methods by black is of course somehow to keep the e5 glued together, the e5 square really compact, because also what white progressive plan here is of course to somehow push the pawn on e5 and open simply the center. So here Stockfish continues with knight to e8. We have bishop to g5, and now very interesting idea here by Stockfish, knight to e5. So as I said, we're now in simply new territory of the Benoni defense, in simply new ideas. Okay, maybe this position, similar positions have been reached, but not out of the Kingside Move Order. Maybe in different sidelines of the common Benoni defense, but never really this position we have not reached. Stockfish plays now really interesting ideas. Look at this: knight to e5, knight to e5, d takes e5, even messing up the pawn structure here. Here on the king side, but what Stockfish is of course preparing is to jump with the knight on d6 and then to make this goal b5. That's now the most important thing. As I said, still Stockfish is relying on this b5 goal, wants simply this expansion on this side of the board. So here Black Marlin prevents this b5 idea with bishop to d3. Look at this: after knight to d6, Black Marlin is saying, I'm taking over here on b5. You cannot really push it immediately, but Stockfish finds now a completely really impressive plan, I would say. Look what Stockfish is doing here. Stockfish is saying, okay, you have attacked my pawn here. I could protect it. I could play something like rook to a8 and I would be solid. But again, this move, rook to a8, would of course make this move b5 almost impossible. So Stockfish, after move queen to e2, says here, okay, you got me here on the queen side, but now I'll try a different attack. Stockfish simply plays the beautiful f5, sacrifices simply the pawn here. After bishop to a6, queen to a6, first of all kicks away the bishop here, f4, further expansion, and now c4. That was now Stockfish main plan, to somehow lock the queen. For instance, the issue about this c4 move is, for instance, if you try something like knight to d1 to maybe somehow protect your b2 pawn, this is just a bad move. But I wanted to show really the huge threat here. The huge threat is, of course, rook to a8. A really interesting plan here by Stockfish. Now the queen is trapped, so that's why after move c4, here Black Marlin had to play now the move a5. Stockfish continues with b takes a5, and that's what I mean. I think this game is very, very interesting because it shows here really cool new ideas of the Benoni defense here by Black. After b takes a5, for instance, if you try queen to a5, queen to a5, rook to a5, now rook takes b2, and Black is coming through here. Black is, I think, here solid game. Black has occupied the second rank. Now will include, of course, these other pieces into the game. So here I would say very solid game for Black for sure. So after b takes a5, knight to d1. That's why by Black Marlin, but now Stockfish continues with rook to a8, queen to c6, and now h5. Further expansion here. Stockfish is trying, of course, with g5, g4, maybe if possible even f3. So here suddenly the game transposes into ideas, if you're familiar with the ideas of the King's-Indian defense, when you're pushing these pawns on f4. But the downside, I think, about this setup by Black is that you have traded off already the light square bishops. Usually when you play the common King's-Indian defense, this orthodox variations, you have the light square bishop on the board, and many times the light square bishop gets sacked even here around the square h3. So that's now thinking of the downside. It's not the optimal attack that Black is having here on the king side, but it's an attack. g5, g4 is coming for sure, so it's not so easy now also for white to protect the position on the king side. So very, very interesting position for sure. So here after h5, f3, we have now bishop to f6. Stockfish is preparing g5, as I said, g4. We have king to f1. Black Marlin is trying maybe even to secure the king somehow on this side of the board. Black Marlin is calculating some problems here. On the king side, we have bishop to h4, hitting the rook, rook to e2, king to f7, bishop to c3, now bishop to f6, again protecting the pawn on e5. We have to say it, Stockfish has also the problem of the e5 score, so not really an easy position now to play for both sides. After bishop to f6, knight to f2, we have king to g7, knight to d1. We have a couple of repetitions, and now a rook to e1, rook to a7, king to e2. Here Black Marlin is trying finally to escape towards the queen side, rook to g8, and now bishop to b4 by Black Marlin. Maybe this was even the first tiny little inaccuracy. First of all, I think here king to d2 could have been played, and then after something like queen to b8 takes, we simply trade off more pieces. Maybe we can include the rook into the game here. This would be a very interesting line. That's at least the line that the Stockfish engine is suggesting here for white to do, to takes the pawn on a5, but somehow allow here Black the activity. But I think Black is solid here. Although down a pawn, of course Black will simply play rook to a8, will have at least some attacking chances. So again, an unpleasant game to play here for white. But as I said, king to d2 was, I think, sort of the must move here for white. But in the game here, Black Martin tried bishop to b4. Very interesting choice. Of course, you cannot take a takes b4 because your rook is hanging, but Stockfish is saying, okay, show me what you got with this move. Bishop to h4, rook drops back, queen to b8. Very, very cool move here by Stockfish. Look at this. Stockfish allows here bishop takes d6, c takes e takes d6, and queen takes c4. But now Stockfish says, okay, you gained the pawn, but I have now a completely massive attacking formation that's coming. Look at this. Rook to c8 is coming. Now Stockfish has an attack on the c file, on the b file. The bishop is very good here. The only problem, I think, is here again this backward pawn, the common Benoni structure pawn on d6 that many times can be attacked, of course, by white. But first of all, white has now to solve the problems of the queen. So here queen to a4 was played by Black Martin. Stockfish continues with the pressure with rook to b7. You cannot take, of course, queen to a5 because this pawn would be hanging, and then the position would simply collapse on the second rank. So here after rook to b7, that's why king to d2, bishop to d8, attack protecting now the bishop, the pawn on a5. Here we have rook to a3, king to e7, rook to b3, rook to b4, queen to a3, and now this bishop is coming into the game. Good move here by Stockfish, because after a couple of trades of rooks, you cannot take, of course, queen to b4 because bishop to e3 would simply take the queen, and the game would be over here for white. So that's why for a takes b4, queen to a6 had to be played, queen to c7, and now queen to a4, queen to c4. You cannot take, you cannot do anything here. You could maybe try here queen to b3, trying to protect, but Stockfish is keeping, of course, the queens on the board. It's not allowing here simplifications for white. If you try queen to b4, then of course bishop to a5 is coming, and game over again here for white. So that's why rook to e1 played by Black Martin, trying to include now new pieces into the game. But Stockfish shows here actually another problem here for white. White is in sort of a Zugzwang position, in sort of a really messed up position where you don't have any good moves. So all of the pieces of white are really paralyzed. So Stockfish is saying here, whenever your position is paralyzed here, I have time to include another piece into the game. And Stockfish includes now the king into the attack. Really wild stuff. Look at this. After rook to e2, Stockfish is marching with the king. Meanwhile, white is trying to regroup. Meanwhile, white is trying somehow to reshuffle, to find good squares for the pieces. But Stockfish is not waiting here a second. Simply goes further with the king. Really crazy position. What should you do? Here after c3, Stockfish continues b takes c3. For instance, if you try knight takes c3 here, you could maybe try to include the knight into the game. But now look at this. Bishop is coming on d4. You're trying to escape. We're trying somehow g5. You're trying maybe even to deliver check here against the king. But we simply pass through after a couple of trades of pawns. G3, and the position is collapsing. Again, white is in sort of a Zugzwang position. We'll play king to g5, rook to h8, and then maybe in some lines even deliver checkmate if the position is, of course, allowing that. Look at it. The knight is almost impossible to move. You cannot move the rook. So very tricky position to handle. So very interesting Zugzwang position where white basically doesn't have good moves. So after b takes c3, that's why b takes c3. Stockfish continues with rook to a8. We have rook to c2, bishop to c5, rook to d2, and now king to g3. Stockfish is simply including the king into the attack in really an epic way. Now the king is on the optimal square. It's simply included into the attack. Very wild stuff. So again, what should white do? If we, for instance, try knight to f2 to again bring the knight into the game, then simply takes is possible. We simply deliver check, and now after rook to a2, game over here for white. Crazy position. So after king to g3, look at this. The pieces don't have good squares. All of the squares for the knights are taken. We see that you cannot move them. If you, for instance, move here, then again the check is possible. In some lines also bishop to f2 is possible as a check idea. We can also maybe include the rook into the game. So too many options, but only for black. Really, white is now here simply on the losing side. So that's why rook to b2, trying to do something, maybe even to trade off the queens. Stockfish continues now with g5, continues the expansion on the king side. Here, Black Martin tries rook to c2, queen to b6. Even a queen sacrifice is possible because again, white doesn't have good moves. You could maybe try something like c4, but look at this. Rook to a1 is very tough to handle. Then afterwards, something like bishop to a5, bishop to c5 is possible, so g4 is coming, king will be included into the game. The problem is, again, you don't have good moves. So you could maybe try, I don't know, to do something like this, but then we deliver check, you have to step back from the defense of the knight, and then the game is over. So if you, for instance, try somehow, I don't know, to get the king here, then we can pick up the pawn on g2. That's also a huge problem now for white in the continuation of the game. You could get out of the mess on the first rank, but then you're standing in the way of your own rook, and when this pawn is taken, then of course the h3 pawn will be taken, maybe even the f3 pawn. So the game is really over here for white. So after bishop to b6, after the trades of queens here, we have rook to b2, bishop to c5, rook to c2, rook to a1. Again, look at this. Black is having the pieces on the optimal squares. Again, white is in sort of a Zugzwang position. Bishop to a7, rook to e2, bishop to b6, bishop to b2, and now bishop to a5. That's the move that Stockfish has been waiting for. Look at this. If you're trying something like, I don't know, rook to c4, then we play simply h4, king to e2. Again, look at this. You don't have a good move to do here. And then after something like king to e2, king takes g2, game over. If you try here, for instance, rook to e2, then again bishop to c3 is working. You cannot take, of course, because of the activity of the rook on the first rank. So really wild stuff. After bishop to a5, here king to e2, but now this same idea, king takes g2. Look at this, the position is simply collapsing. Stockfish simply attacks also the king, takes out now, and now this pawn is marching, obviously. Game over here for white. So crazy position. After a couple more moves, Stockfish simply promoted to queen here. We have now this idea, queen to b1, king to a5, and after rook to a2, it was a beautiful checkmate by the rook and queen's activity. So great game. Let's go back to this opening theory a little bit. Let's repeat. So after moves this common position of the Kingside Move Order, I really like this idea of a6 and then b6. Very important not to allow a5, and then here this idea knight to e5. Okay, you have a messed up pawn structure, but the knight is coming on d6, and then b5 c4 and similar stuff could work. So we have seen that this afterwards, this beautiful pawn sacrifice, which almost trapped the queen here after move c4. So we saw the queen had a tough time. So I think you could reach this position many times. Interesting idea of the Benoni defense for sure. But of course, we saw great element afterwards by Stockfish. Great endgame technique using this king in the attack, paralyzing, neutralizing the pieces of white. So in my opinion, very a crazy game again by Stockfish 16. So okay, I hope that you enjoyed this game. I really enjoyed it a lot. Interesting ideas of the Kingside Move Order against the Benoni defense. If you want to see some reverse games, great games by Stockfish against the Benoni defense, here are some games that we have analyzed before. And if you want to see some other AI chess games, check out our commented chess games played by computers series. Here's also the link, and if you like this content, hit the subscribe button. See you soon with some more videos, and what do we say in the end? Chess is the best, of course.